chairing Finance Committee, calling the meeting to order. Welcome all. We have on our staff, Peter Bervatera and Rick Ledwith and Gina Verano. And we have council members McGinnis and Tiffany McGinnis and Carol Anderson Blanks and Barry Walters. And then we also have our members of this Finance Committee, Deborah Poland and Mark Zadanowitz, who is still marked as unknown user, but we know who you are. So before we start on the items, Mr. Ledwith, I believe you have a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we begin, I just wanted to make two slight amendments to this evening's agenda. We are withdrawing item number 2D, which is a resolution revising the schedule of fees for various recreational facilities. The reason for the withdrawal is that we had discussed these fees at our Human and Community Services meeting, our last meeting that was chaired by Chairwoman Poland. So that will be on the council agenda next week. And then I also wanted to withdraw 6B, which is executive session pursuant to section 1-206E of the Connecticut General Statutes to discuss the collective bargaining agreements with CSEA, SEIU, Local 2001. This conversation will be held in closed session, not in executive session at the end of the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, and for that explanation. So let's move on to business items. First, we have the resolution appropriating funds to purchase additional police vehicles. You can tell me about that.
Will do. So we do have a little bit of history with this resolution in that the council had previously appropriated the purchase of 5 new police vehicles back in 2021. And this order was subsequently canceled by the vendor due to supply chain issues back in the fall of 2022. Last week, that same vendor contacted us and had identified that they had 3 hybrid police Inceptor utility cruisers that were built to our specifications, and they asked whether we would want to purchase them at a cost of $180,333 for all 3. So we are before you again to ask the council to support the purchase of these three vehicles. We would utilize capital non-recurring funds to make this purchase. You'll recall a couple meetings back, we had appropriated $3 million from last year's surplus into CNRE, and we would use $180,000 of those funds to make this purchase for our police department. So this would bring the number of hybrid vehicles within the department up to 10. So we have 7 presently, so we'd be adding 3 more hybrid vehicles to the fleet, and that's certainly better for our environment, not completely electric, but the hybrid model does save on fuel as well as maintenance costs as well. So I'll pause there through you, Mr. Chairman, turn it back to you for any questions that you or the committee may have.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Deb.
Thank you. I think this is great. I support us being able to purchase hybrid. I'm just curious, how much were we planning to spend when the original resolution was made back in 21?
That is a good question. Through you, Councilor Poland and Mr. Chairman, Peter, do you recall the original purchase price back in 2021?
I think they were a little less. If I recall correctly, they're in the $55,000 range. I think the purchase itself is less than $60,000. I think the $60,000 price tag is fully built out with all the light bars and bells and whistles that go with it. So I think it is a little more. We are paying a little more than we would have paid 2 years ago.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I think everybody's paying more for cars now than they were a couple of years ago. So this seems like a good deal to me. And as long as Chief Riddick and his team are supportive and we have the funds in the capital non-recurring expenses account, I'd happily support this.
And just to quote the dealer, if you don't want them, I can get rid of them this afternoon. So,
Thank you.
Carol. You're
You're
muted.
muted, Carol.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted it. Thank you. Quick question, just out of curiosity. Are the vehicles SUVs or sedans?
They are modified SUV, so they're, I don't know, I guess what I call those a sedan, Peter, but it's not a.
they're Ford
Yep.
Explorer police interceptors.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, we'll move on. But first, I'll note that I did not see that our Mayor Cantor is on the call as well. I was getting the Zoom feed of video only. So welcome, Mayor, and apologies for not listing you up front. She's been here all along. Thank you, and I'll move on to second resolution on the civil engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as the council knows, we were awarded about a $700,000 Safe Streets for All grant to fund our speed enforcement pilot program. We received that grant, well, we received notification now a couple months ago, back in November. And this program will allow us to fund an engineering position, but it'll take us another couple of months anyways before we receive the funding for this grant and subsequent position. We would propose utilizing $31,000 of ARPA funds to fund the position immediately, which would allow our engineering department to jumpstart our Vision Zero action plan, which, as you know, fits in perfectly with the speed enforcement program. So this position would begin working on the design of the 70+ projects that we've identified through Vision Zero to be completed within the first year. And then once we receive the Safe Streets for All grant later this year, we'll roll this position into, for fiscal year 25, into the grant. So we'd only need partial funding to get us through April, May, and June. And then the next year, this position would be funded through the Safe Streets for All grant, but will allow us to get a critical jump start on these projects that we've identified to be completed within the first year of Vision Zero. So that summarizes the need here. I'll pause there through you, Mr. Chairman. Turn it back to you.
Thank you. I see Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rick, the ARPA funds and then the Safe Street grant, an engineer of the type that we would be looking for with that kind of experience, is that something that we can attract, knowing that they're going to be funded piecemeal like this and no real forward future potentially of long-term employment? How does that look for us to hire, someone that has the skill set that we would need for this to roll right into it immediately?
So we do have, great question. We do have the funding for 2 years through the grant program. So we did post the position. We didn't have a tremendous number of applicants. We did have at least one who we're very confident will accept the position. I do know as we move through Vision Zero, we are going to, be talking again about, funding this position beyond those 2 years to get to all of the critical projects that we will need to complete to get us to 0 deaths and 0 serious injuries within 10 years. So yeah, it did have an impact on the number of candidates that we would generally get. But we did fortunate enough that we've identified one very strong candidate who would love to be here and work on this type of project.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? I don't see any. I will say this is where we put the money where our mouth is. We obviously talked a lot about Vision Zero, but it comes down to budget. So appreciate the work on this, and certainly we need to make the commitment that we've talked about. So very exciting. So nothing else. We'll move on to our item C, the salary range for non-union director positions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this resolution would amend our current director salary range. And our range currently for directors maxes out at $165,000. So we would propose increasing it by 9% to $180,000. We generally amend the salary range for our directors about every 5 years or so, when necessary to provide members of our team with the cost of living adjustment. The last time we did amend it was back in 2019. And right now, we don't have a large number of directors who are at the maximum. In fact, we have two, but they are two critical members of our leadership team, not just to our leadership team, but overall for the operations of our town. So this amendment to the salary range would allow me to give these two important members of my team a very modest wage adjustment, and we'll obviously do our best to keep the wages as low as we possibly can. But I do want to. These folks have gone a couple of years without a raise, and this would allow me to give them a raise. But I'd also point out, as I said earlier, that the rest of our directors are far below the 165. So there's a cushion for the rest of our directors, but it does give me a little bit of flexibility with these two individuals. So through you, Mr. Chairman, I'll pause there.
And just
Turn
to,
back to
if you can, just to clarify the process, since you're asking for a 9% range on a 9% increase in the range, that doesn't mean people are getting that.
Thank you
raise.
for that clarification. Absolutely. So it would be far less than the 9%, and as it would allow me just to give them a slight bump. And I would obviously keep that moderated over the next 3, 4, 5 years to keep it from getting to that maximum. But again, it allows me to give them a small raise at this point.
Very good. Thank you. And do we have any questions? I do note that Judge Akers and Councilman Berto Cortez have joined us as well. If there are no questions, we'll move on to, I guess, staff reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First up, we have Mr. Privatera, who will provide a update on our latest financial projection. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it over to Peter.
Good evening, everyone. Pete Privatera, Finance Director. Our projection right now, this was as of the end of December, is about $2.9 million of operating surplus. It's down a little from the prior month. We had to make some adjustments in some departments. We had to make an adjustment in the fire department, and we had to make an adjustment in our contingency account related to wage settlements, a small adjustment. But all in all, this report was completed prior to the completion of our second tax collection, which I'm happy to say is looking better than last year. So my expectation is my next report to you, even though it's going to be the end as of the end of January, I'm going to probably reflect that and make some adjustments in my revenue accounts. No real changes here. Again, knock on wood, great weather, no snow. We're hoping that continues. But all in all, I think we're in line with where we should be. And again, there's really no other significant changes. We'll keep an eye on public safety over time. That that moderates when people retire and people leave, and overtime jumps a little. But all in all, I think we're going to do better as we move towards the third quarter of the fiscal year. And I'll take any questions if anyone has any.
I do not see any. As always, your reports are fascinating and complete. They answer all the questions right there. But thank you. Going once, going twice, don't see any. All right, we'll move on to the next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up, we have Mr. Dakers, who is our town assessor, and Joe is going to provide us with a summary of our grand list report that you all had a chance to at least take a quick look at. I do want to take a moment just to thank Joe and his team for the work that they do throughout the entire year in compiling this information and the work that certainly goes into this report, which is summarized in a few pages of numbers, but the actual work that goes into it is a year-long task. And those of us who've been working with Joe for as long as at least I have, and Peter has, he takes his work very, very seriously. And Joe knows essentially where all $7.28 billion of value lies. I mean, he could tell you things about automobiles and residential commercial property, and he knows it as if it was his own. So I appreciate the passion with which he does his job day in and day out. And Joe will go through the summaries, and as you probably noticed, our grand list grew by 0.08% this year, so it was up $5.6 million. You'd probably also notice that our motor vehicle values decreased quite significantly this year, down almost $27 million. And that was following 2 years of just tremendous exponential growth in our motor vehicle grand list value. And we've talked a lot about why that was, and Joe will certainly get into that as well. But I also want to remind everybody, and it's highlighted in his report, there are a lot of great things coming down the road that are going to provide us with the support that we'll need in the future with our grand list. A large number of projects we've talked about them, a number that you have already voted on as a council. We have one park, which is, we all were at the ribbon cutting. It's up and running. There was a tax abatement involved in that project, so we're seeing some incremental growth coming from that project. 10% last year. We'll see 10% in each of the next 9 years. Under construction right now, we have 920 Farmington, the byline. So that's 48 units and mixed use on the bottom floor. We have 950 Trout Brook, which is 170 plus units. We have the Camelot, which is the 900 Farmington Avenue. And then we have the Fellowship project as well, which is adding another 95 units. Those projects will have less of an impact because they're all affordable housing, less of an impact on our grand list as the 920 and 950 Trout Brook will. And then from an approved standpoint, we have that don't have shovels in the ground yet, but these projects are forthcoming, talking almost daily with the developers on their progress. So we will hope to see these projects begin their development and construction very, very soon. We have Center Park Place, which is right here in the center at Arapahoe and LaSalle. We have the residence at Steel Road, which you recently approved 18 new units at the residence. We have the Elmwood Lofts, which is, as we know, a critical piece to our TOD district with 150 units and a mixed use development there. We have 1244 North Main, which was recently approved for the West Hartford Housing Authority. We have the 579 New Park Avenue, which is about 70 new units there, and with commercial on the bottom floor. And of course, Yukon, which will be a part of Yukon, will be before the council on March 11th. And we're working very closely with the developer to move that project forward on 1800 as well. So just a tremendous amount of growth that's in front of us. So I just wanted to make those comments prior to Joe giving a summary on this year's report. But I just want to, it's important for us to remember what is going to happen in terms of growth with that grand list, which is going to provide support for both the town and the school district as we continue to make West Hartford the very special community that it is today. So through you, Mr. Chairman, I will turn it over to Mr. Dakers.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about this year's grand list. I certainly hate to cast a shadow over some of Rick's comments, and wish that all of those developments were on this year's grand list. I would certainly be delighted to talk to you about it. Everything for the most part with our grand list this year is routine, obviously with the exception of the motor vehicles. Annually, we have organic growth in the real property section. We're averaging somewhere in the area of, I think it's about $20 million a year, just in the real property class. If you look back over the last 8 years, not including the 21 grand list or the 2016 grand list. So, we're on track with this year. We're at $19 million, so that's not bad. The personal property list, I'm going to skip over motor vehicles for a minute. The personal property list has done quite well this year. We at about $13.5 million. And over the last 8 or 9 years, we were averaging an increase of about $6.5 million in assessment value per year. So those two categories are doing extremely well. Unfortunately, with that growth of about $31 million, we took this broadside hit of about $26 million from motor vehicles. And so you might ask, well, what happened, Joe? Did you guys change your valuation methodology? Well, we didn't change it. We just recorded it. There were a number of things happening in the marketplace that I'm sure many of you are privy to. In fact, I saw the Fed chairman on Sunday night on 60 Minutes talking about some of the issues with our chips for these automobiles, the issues that we had with that, our supply chain issues. And we certainly saw that migrate over to the motor vehicle arena. And the fall of 2020, we normally have about 3.5 to 4 million cars nationally that are for sale. In the fall of 2020, we only had 900,000 cars on the market. So simple economics right there tells you that with that level of supply and the demand that you have, the prices start to skyrocket. And then it's exacerbated by the lack of the supplies that they needed. The new car manufacturers were closing plants, and it just was a confluence that showed up in our 2021 grand list of about a 24% increase. So we saw our 21 grand list increase by $115 million. That was unprecedented. We never saw that in the history of the motor vehicle list. On average, we were looking at about 1.8 to 2% a year over the prior years to 2020. And all of a sudden we hit 24.9. In 2022, once again, we saw another increase of just about 6%. And all of that is still as a result of the COVID-19 factor. Of course, now this year we see a decline of about 4% in that overall list, and that really usurped or took the wind out of our sail for the 2023 grand list. I won't bore you with a lot of the details on the real property, but I suspect that we'll see a softening of this effect for the 24 grand list. Interest rates now are softening. The inflation rate is coming down, and I think you're going to see some increased production and supply out there that will help out with these used car values and new car values. It's an interesting side fact. We have 409 Teslas on our grand list of about 44,000 cars. That category by itself saw a decline in their values of 49%. I mean, across the board, they cut the values. In January of 2023, Mr. Musk cut the values by a third, and he had some subsequent changes in the fall of 23. They showed up on this year's grand list for a decline of 49% across the board. A point in fact, the EVs are not doing well on the grand list at all. The ones that are doing well are the hybrid cars. They seem to be holding their values at about 16% depreciation. But the EVs are having some challenges now. And I think we're going to see further price declines in that category. I'm open to any questions that you might have at this point.
Any questions? No, I'm seeing again a fascinating report. So I do have one. So how much? I saw the percentage. Do you actually know how much we lost? How much we're losing in grand list just because of Tesla? Like, do you have an actual number?
I don't have that in front of me, but I can get you that. I can actually get you that this evening or first thing in the morning.
No
No,
rush.
it's-
Don't hurt yourself looking at it. I'm just that's
We have-
curiosity, but it's pretty amazing that
All right, I'll convey that to Rick in the AM.
that yeah. All right, that's fascinating. All right, well, I don't see any questions on that or anybody else wanting to make a dumb comment like I just did. Holding back in other comments too on that.
Oh.
So I believe that's it for staff reports. We don't know that we have any planned future agenda items, so I will make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, we will have a special meeting,
That's right.
a special finance and administration meeting on Tuesday, the 13th. Why don't we say 6:50 p.m.
So
prior to the start of the council meeting? So we'll do that meeting in person.
we were going to check in with people to see how that would work.
Yeah.
I know you suggested it. If the members, so Paul and you cringed. Can you make that?
Can make it.
Mark, you're muted. You're okay.
Yes. I
Okay.
actually can, as long as I can join remotely.
Yeah, and that you can do remotely and then still show up. then we're in person.
I'll be
but
remote for the town council meeting also.
Oh, you will? Okay, then we'll make sure we have that. Excellent.
And-
And Mayor, is that okay with you? I didn't get a chance to check in with you.
Yes, I spoke with Rick. Yes, thank you.
You did? Okay, good. All right. Figured you had.
So
make sure.
administratively for this next move, because I just don't want to have technical problems. Can we stay on here and just shut video off and?
No, we gotta go into executive. So let me make the motion for executive and then we'll.
So okay, we got to shut it down because I'm not promising I'm getting back on. But
Okay.
You will
You
get
can do
it, Mark.
You got
So
this.
I do have to, without objection, I move that we enter executive session to discuss 2 pending tax appeals. JACSAR Partners LLC versus Town of West Hartford and Macy's Mall Real Estate LLC versus Town of West Hartford. Are there any objections? Seeing no objections, the motion passes. I invite the town manager, tax assessor, deputy corporation counsel, and attorney Collins from Halloran and Sage to join us in executive session. Just to be clear, we will go into executive session. We will come out, but there will be vote on these appeals if that's the appeal's pleasure, and then we'll adjourn the meeting. So let's all head to the executive session and hope that Mark can make it. I move to ratify the settlements of each pending tax appeal. 1, JACSAR Partners LLC versus Town of West Hartford as the 2021 grand list. The fair market value of the land and buildings located at 591 New Park Avenue is $244,000. And the other one is Macy's Mall Real Estate LLC versus Town of West Hartford as the 2021 grand list. The fair market value of the land and buildings located at 1500 New Britain Avenue is $10,560,000.
Second the motion.
Any discussion? I'll call for a voice vote. This is of committee members only. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays or not? The item is ratified. I'll move adjournment now. Since the last time it's been withdrawn. So without objection, I move that we adjourn. Any objection? Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you all for attending.
You.